So I'm trying to do a basic run through of the setup of getting data from Solar Assistant to Emoncms. I already have it set up, but I think I can just show you the basics of how to do it. I mean, this is Solar Assistant. You have all this data. It is pulling and displaying on the dash, which you intend to shift to Emoncms. I think the real advantage of Emoncms really is that you can publish that to the world. You can design the dashboards. You can save the data incrementally and have it historically for years and years and years. It is self-hosted. I mean, all the usual advantages of self-hosting stuff, really. Anyway, you can do that with Solar Assistant. I mean, the model is you and for you only. It's not public facing, really, unless you're going to be sharing your login with the world. Anyway, the first thing you need to resolve in Solar Assistant is the issue of your networking. I recommend, in fact, it's not recommend, it is mandatory that you set up a static IP address for your Solar Assistant box. Here I'm using Wi-Fi because I can guarantee that the Wi-Fi is really good. It's whatever, it's right beside the Solar Assistant box anyway. But normally you are advised to use a LAN cable for security, for more robust setup really. Now you also need to install or enable the MQTT broker. MQTT is short for mosquito. That's the protocol really. This is not the point of that right now. You need to enable the mosquito broker. Now, if you go into the configuration, you need to quickly note some things. Now, you need to know the topic. The default one is solar underscore assistant. You may choose to change it. Really, you can. It's up to you, really. You may not want it to be the default, but I don't bother with that, really. Then also the authentication. I have mine blank because my system is enclosed, is on my LAN, and there's no access to it from the wide world. So I don't bother about authentication. But if you so wish, you may put authentication there really. So like I said, note your IP address, your local IP address for the Solar Assistant box is important. Now, next is you need to install Solar Emon CMS on another computer. I have a computer on my home server. Basically, that's what it is. Running Ubuntu. I can SSH into it here and see. I mean, I tested this out before starting this recording. Anyway, you install Emon CMS via Docker. How to set up Docker is probably not within the conference of what I'm trying to explain right now. You can follow this link particularly to install Docker if you don't already use or know how to use Docker. But you need to use these commands, one line each, copy and paste in your terminal. This will pull the necessary files for him on CMS. This will clone this Git, essentially just the Docker compose files, really, and the config files for the Emoncms Docker. This is cd Emoncms Docker. You change directly into the Docker compose file, then Docker compose up. I think this should actually include -d to run it in the background. But like I said, if you are conversant with Docker, that shouldn't be an issue for you, really. So here is what I'm talking about. Now, when you've done that, the the Docker Compose is running, or the container is running fine. If you do ls in the folder, you will see that these are the files you pulled when you open the Git. Now it is important you edit this one, you override. The reason being that Emon CMS will run by default on port 8080. which you may have something that's running on port 8080, or you may simply not wish to have anything running on port 8080 that is front facing the world. I personally don't do that anyway. I prefer to change it to something else. So what I did was I changed mine to 8989. It's 8999. Sorry. So you can really change it to any port you like on the host side of the config file. And that is it. You then run your Docker compose up-d. The dash d is to make sure that the command runs in the background and you can do other stuff with it. Now, when that is done, you now have to access your Emoncms installation. Mine is running on my VPS, and my VPS IP address within the LAN is what I'm using to access it because it's headless. I'm not on the same computer. So I access it by going to, this is the IP address for the home server that I installed in my CMS on 8999. So boom, you get into your Emoncms this way. Now, quickly, when you start up, you have to register. Registration page is just you provide an email address, username, and password. Double, then you click register, and it will give you the login page and log into Emoncms. Now, when you get into Emoncms, it's blank. All the data is not present. Both inputs and feeds, and nothing is there really. So at this point, you're now ready to send the data or consume the data with Emoncms. So the simple way to do that is you go back to the folder for the Emoncms Docker. This folder, then you edit this default.docker-n file is the environment file for the Docker installation. Default dot docker dash end. So here you use the MQTT section of the M file. You can see this is my own config. I've changed some of the default things there, but basically what you have to do is MQTT enabled is true. You change the host to the IP address of your Solar Assistant. This IP address 101. Then client ID doesn't matter really, it's just something to distinguish the client that is consuming the data. Now, because I don't use a username and password in my MQTT in Solar Assistant, I guess best practice is to use a username and a password. I don't bother for personal reasons. And I'm referring to this, the authentication here. Really, I don't bother, but you should really. So you'd have a username and a password there, which you would input here for username and password. Now, for the base topic naturally is Solar_Assistant or whatever it is you change yours to, if you so wish. I don't bother. Like I said, this is also a test anyway. So that is the Solar_Assistant, and of course the MQTT port is 1883, which is what MQTT started running on 1883. Yes. So you simply save this file and you stop the container Docker Compose down. Then you start it all over again, Docker Compose up-d to make sure it runs in the background. Simple. So you then go back to your URL for the Emoncms. And now, if you check, you would find that you need to log in again. Sorry. And when you log in again, you will then see that your inputs will be populated with the MQTT data from Solar Assistant. Now, some of these don't pull the same rates as intervals as the regular data. I think these ones change quickly, and these don't hardly ever change at all. So this pull maybe every 2 minutes or something. But basically, the data is now available for you to use and manipulate in your Emoncms setup. And that is really, you can then create your feeds and make your apps, your dashboards and whatnot. So basically that is it. That is a brief rundown of what is going on. And you can then get the data into it. The same principle applies if you have other means of getting MQTT data from any other means. I mean, it's possible you use some scripts or Python or whatever to get aggregate data and send it to Emoncms. It's the same concept, really. So that's about it.